And over here in the front window is the lettuce plant that is now held on since the summer. So we keep nurturing the lettuce plant, and there it is. Thank you, lettuce plant. All right, so we're in the bedroom right now. Tell me what we got going on here.
We finally got our shelves with these are LED shop lights set up. These are a bunch of alliums, so bunching onions and leeks, and then some regular size onions. I've never grown any of those before, so we'll see what happens this year. And then in this one, we actually already have some little sprouts growing. These are mostly herbs, and we've got some calendula that's already started to grow. And then down here, we've got some yarrow growing. So these I planted just a few days ago. Maybe, I'm trying to think, maybe like Tuesday. And then, yeah, this is going to be, this is for the bunnies, because we feed them a lot of arugula, which is really good. We give them
a pretty posh diet.
For their digestive and immune systems, we're going to grow that as baby greens. So it's not quite as seeded as solidly as with microgreens.
So we are on our way to Tractor Supply. One of the things that you may not know about rabbits and waterers for rodents is that apparently no one knows how to make these in a way that's reasonable or sustainable.
Yeah.
So like we have a few of these really high-end water bottles that have a little lever nipple on it, and those are expensive. They're like over $20, and they're over $20 because you can plug them in for an outdoor rabbit hutch and it'll keep the water from freezing, which is a good thing to have. However, we have tried the cheap water bottles of all different kinds and some expensive ones in the hopes that we could get something that runs a little bit better, and we have had very little success. So when you have a rabbit setup, you inevitably have to check to make sure the water bottle is actually draining. It's really important to keep an eye on your water levels. The 3 new bucks we just got don't seem to understand the concept of a water bottle. Like, they don't get it. So the person who we got them from might have been feeding them water in a bowl. They were eating everything out of bowls. It's not hard to get a rabbit to eat something or drink something out of a bowl if they've used a waterer before. They figure it out pretty fast. However, if they have not used a waterer before and they've only used a bowl, the concept is pretty alien to them. Yep. So that's kind of a juggler, but at the same time, the only reason you know it's working or it's not because you're paying attention to the water level. And we noticed in the first 12 hours that nothing had changed, and we thought maybe they just weren't that thirsty. And then when we got home that evening, that hadn't changed still, and you know that's not it. Yep. So we got to go replace water bottles, and there's no brand that works in a way that...
There's 2 things that can go wrong with a water bottle, and this is one of these things is what we keep having trouble with, is that they just leak. They just leak all the water out of them, which is really not awesome, because number one, you'll lose the water before the animal can, drink enough of it. It'll drip out an entire bottle in a day, and your animal might only get a fraction of that, but you don't even know how much the animal gets because it's dripping.
Yeah.
And then your bedding gets soaked. So what is supposed to help keep the smell and the manure kind of contained, and it gets wet and then it can't do its job, and you're wasting water, and no one wants to waste water. And the other thing that can happen is that the little ball in the end of the feeder gets stuck, and then it doesn't release water. It'll get jammed, and the tongue and teeth of the animal can't dislodge it in order to get water out of it. Usually that's an easy fix. You just got to play with it and it'll eventually start working. But sometimes it's just permanently jammed. We had that happen with one of them. And then you just have to replace the bottle altogether. But yeah, it's pain in the butt.
And the cheap ones too, like The rabbits, I mean, we've talked about this. Rabbits are rodents. Rodents chew.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when they drink, they're really, some of them are pretty rough with their water bottle.
Yeah.
And so they can dent that tube that the ball is in. And if they dent the tube, the ball gets stuck.
Yeah.
And it either won't move and they can't get water, or it won't seal and it will just keep dripping.
Right.
So these are things that you wouldn't normally think about, and they kind of pop in. So we're doing that. That's part of today's goal, is to deal with the water issue.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we're working on today is I got to work on some of the compost outside, and we are putting in more rebar and conduit today for the frames for the
other side.
Other raised beds. How about that, or whatever you want to call it?
Greenhouse.
Yeah, you guys will see what that involves pretty soon. Yeah, I think that's it. It's crazy time. I hope a lot of you guys are thinking about preps like this for this year. I hope more of you have actually gotten into it. For those of you who don't know, we'll say this one more time. You don't need a permit for rabbits. Most places don't consider rabbits to be agricultural.
Unless you're on a military base, and then they know what's going on.
Yep.
You can't even have pet rabbits on a military base, so...
You can't?
No, you can't, because they consider them to be livestock. So even a pet rabbit is not...
Livestock.
Yeah, not acceptable. So... But yeah, that's the only place that you'll really find.
So, I was going to say, don't you love the way they take away our food choices under the guise of protectionism? So, again, and we'll bring this up from time to time, is that you can do this rabbit system at your house. And like I've said before, like T's said before, you know, it's not just the meat they're good for or the fur. They're also good companion animals. They are very easy to work with.
Yeah.
And
especially if you start working with them very young.
Yeah.
Like, we handle our bunnies a lot.
T has really done that with the new litter.
So the first 2 litters we're having are going to be more likely to be pet bunnies because of the small size and tweak. So I'm making sure that the babies are getting handled every day, so that when they get to their new home, it's easy for even a child to handle the bunny. The bunny is not going to get aggressive or skittish or shy away from being held.
Rabbits don't want to get picked up.
They don't like it, but if you get them used to being held, it will be easier for them. It will be less stressful, which is the goal. They will never like it or love it, but they will get used to it, and that is a really important thing. If you're breeding animals, you definitely want to be able to pick them up, because you have to put the does in the bucks' cages, and you have to, you want them to get exercise sometimes, so taking them out, putting them in a tractor or in a little pen so that they can run around a little bit. You want them to be handled a lot, or be able to be handled.
Some people have even said that this seems a little bit posh, but you have to understand it like this. I had a friend who said that, when I was younger, we had rabbits and we weren't allowed to do that with them. I'm like, look, the part of the reason why you do this as a meat operation, people are like, I don't know if I could do that. I'm like, well, you have to get past this. One of the reasons you would do this with a meat rabbit operation is their cortisol level, their stress hormone level never gets that high if they're handled. If they're relaxed every time you're around them and they associate you with being relaxed, that stress hormone doesn't happen, which means you get healthier, heavier, more resilient rabbits. And the other thing, stronger immune system. Also, when it's time to send them to the great beyond, or as we know at the fridge camp, they don't know what's coming. And if we're going to end an animal's life, we really don't want stress at all. So, again, handling them. If you handle your animals a lot, especially with rabbits, not with all livestock, but with rabbits, when you need to deal with an issue with them, trimming nails, maybe you need vet attention, and this is a situation where you are going to the vet. It's much better if the rabbit's handled. They're gonna do better. The other thing too is, remember that this animal doesn't understand what words you're using. So just because you're saying it's okay, I touched another rabbit, but that rabbit's not your enemy, rabbits don't know that.
Right.
And rabbits don't care about that.
They're very territorial. So
Very.
I had an experience a couple days ago. So we've got Silver has her bunnies, which I handle quite a bit. And then we've got Scully, our other doe, who we believe is pregnant. And she's getting a little bit of her mother instinct going on. And I was playing with the babies, and then Scully is eating voraciously. She will eat every single bite of hay I put in her cage every single day, which is one of the reasons why we believe she's pregnant, because she's got food. She eats a lot anyway, but she doesn't usually gorge herself on hay. So she was begging for more food at her door, so I was giving her more food, and then I always, give them a few seconds of petting after I feed them. And she sniffed my hand, and then she bit me. Not to break the skin. It was like a mother nip, like, stop doing what you're doing. I don't want you to do that. But it's because I smelled like the babies, and it's another doe's babies in her territory, and that's not an appropriate thing for a baby to do, is go into someone else's territory. So she gave me the what for. Like, I've got a little bit of a bruise under the skin because of it. That was, how hard she kind of clamped down. And I didn't even think about it. Their cages are right next door, so she's familiar with the smell. But because she's got this mothering instinct kind of kicking in, she's not having it anymore. So I've got to wash my hands after I play with the babies if I'm going to handle her. And you have to think of things like that because you don't want to endanger any of the animals, have them react poorly to your scent. You want them to only smell you or food or,
So one of the
like
things
that.
you can do is spending time with your rabbits, like T talked about and T's been doing. You can also make sure you wash your hands before you handle a rabbit. Make sure you never cross-contaminate rabbits. They can get each other sick. The only thing they can give you an eye is ringworm, but if they had it, but they can get each other pretty sick.
Yeah.
But wash your hands. It's not a bad idea if you're trying to connect with your rabbit. Maybe you get a nice clean t-shirt. You've been sweating a little, you rub that on your body so it's got your scent, put it in the cage with them. Like, anything to normalize your smell will relax them. And as people who are running a rabbit operation that's, both pets and meat rabbits, we still want them to be relaxed. We want them to be healthy and happy. So that's part of it. And of course, clean, good water. The other thing too is that T pointed out, and she's been on top of, is if you're having baby bunnies, you want to use filtered water.
Yeah.
And the reason you want to use it is because chlorine can actually do some serious damage.
Yeah, especially with the little babies. We're not quite as strict with the other bunnies, although we are about to get a Berkey water filter system because our town water has been known to be full
We're not going to
of
say what
very
town it is, but
heavy
it's
metals.
bad.
It doesn't smell or taste very good. And we just have like a pitcher, it might be a gallon pitcher.
Yeah. It's a big pain in the butt.
Yeah, it is.
So
we're going to get a bigger filter, and it'll filter a couple of gallons of water at a time.
If you guys are, we'll do a video on that.
And then all of the animals will end up getting filtered water.
And Berkey water filters are like,
the best. Expensive. We're saving
They're
for
expensive,
it.
but
definitely.
This guy gonna wave me through?
I think
Yeah, thank you. In Massachusetts, they put police on traffic details, and the police routinely seem to think that it's an irritation for them to wave traffic through while they're on their phone.
Yeah.
In New Hampshire, you can pave a mile of road for about $19,000, and in Massachusetts it costs almost $160,000 for the same thing, and New Hampshire roads are better. And I just figured I'd throw that out there. All right, so I'm setting up the next stage of the compost. You can see the frame back there, and then here's our compost pile. Right here was where the pallet was. You can see the layers. It's pretty dark. It's not cold here. It's not frozen, even though it's pretty cold out. It's actually soft, because inside of this pile is going to be heat. Now, I'm at the point where we've got so much compost and it's moving so fast that I need to stack it. I need it to do its job in less square footage more efficiently. So I've got some pallets here up against the fence. I'm going to add a bungee to the top of these things so they don't open up. And then I'm going to shovel all of that into a 4-pallet corner that'll just about fit in the corner of the bed. It'll allow me to work on the stuff I'm still working on, but it'll concentrate the heat of the compost and what it's doing and hopefully make it more of what we want, right? So here it is. That's 3 sides. Old Glory, gotta have it. 3 sides, and then we'll put the 4th side in and we're gonna shovel over the top of this. It's gonna condense this and force it vertically. More heat, more pressure. It's still got good airflow because pallets aren't completely closed. You need airflow. And we can put a tarp on the top of it. The only fear I have is idiots walking by putting stuff in it, but I think if it's got a cover on it, it should be fine. And if you can see it, it's steaming. See it steaming? That stuff back there is the new stuff. That's the old stuff. All going vertically. This should fill this entire thing. And then we can watch it in real time drop. It'll drop every day. It'll keep compressing, especially the next few days. Not today, really. It's not even 40. The next few days are going to get supposedly up to high 50s, even 60. So this thing's going to break down fast. So it's stacked. It's all stacked. You can see it kind of creeping through. It's full almost to the top. And then just like with any compost situation, especially in colder weather, when you're going to get cold at night, and while it's going to get up to almost 60 in the next 3 days, it's still going to be in the 20s, if not teens at night. You want to keep the heat in there. And so as the entropy does its job, it'll heat up. You want to cover it because while it's not bad for it to be a little moist, you don't want a compost pile wet. You want it just the right amount of moisture. And when people go like, well, how do you know? You mess with it. You're going to flip it every once in a while anyway. There's no reason why you're not going to take assessment to what it looks like. Does it smell right? Compost should have a smell. Some people who are like city people don't understand what compost is supposed to smell like, and they're like, oh, it smells bad. I'm like, does it really? It smells like earth. This smells like earth. If it has a sour or a strange smell to it that's not good, that really turns your stomach, that's anaerobic. That's lack of oxygen. So we have to correct that by opening it up. If your compost is too wet, you can open it up. You can add dry material. If your compost isn't wet enough, you could add water. If you're going to do it, I do it in layers. So this is a compost pile. It's not really wet right now. It's maybe a bit damp. It's breaking down nicely. There's a lot of good leaf mold on the inside. So I'm not going to add water. I'm going to see what this does over the next 3 warm days. It should drop. I'd say it should make it down to half. The goal is to get it to where it's ready to go on the top of the garden. So right now we're at still like the end of the first week of March, beginning of the second week. I don't know what day it is anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. Yeah, I actually don't know what day it is. Okay, in any case, no, it's Monday. Ooh, geez. All right, so what was I saying? Yeah, so we need to get it smaller. So if we can get it down to half that, when it really starts to warm up, I'll start to fill up our drum again. Now this is where this does become useful. So like I said before, if you live in a cold climate, this drum here, it ain't gonna do it. After the end of November, when it starts to get real cold, it just won't break anything down. Now it's starting to get warm out, and we're starting into the spring. This is what we're going to use to finish this compost. So I'd say in about 3 weeks or so, I'm going to start putting this compost in that bucket, and it's going to add a lot of heat. It's going to concentrate it, and it's going to get really warm. Hopefully then it'll get to the point where it is almost finished. Once it's gotten to that point, you got to let it settle for a little bit. So then we'd put it inside of like a hoop cage. Basically take a piece of fence, make a circle out of it, fill it up. It'll still break down a little bit, but it'll calm down. It'll start to relax. It'll start to deactivate. So if we do that in about 3 weeks, that means that the compost should be ready calm down and whatnot for maybe the beginning of May, middle of April to the beginning of May. And then we'll top dress the beds with it, or whatever the wife tells me, because I'm not in charge of that. And then we will have the beds ready for when it's time to put the plants in. And we'll keep that setup going, and eventually we'll have new employees who will help us turn our compost. But, you know, probably in another dimension. That'll make sense in the future. And then these are our 3 new bucks. There's Mr. Gray. There's Crackberry. And then behind him's Blackberry. We couldn't think of what else to name them. So, these are the 3 new bucks. Back there is the main buck. There's a little bear. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. How you doing? Hi, how's it going? Eat my finger. There we go. And, of course, little Tweak. They're all doing good. And Silver, who we think is... Hey, sweetie.
Oh, Scully.
Scully. We think Scully's pregnant. So, or she's just fat. I think she's pregnant. This thing is eating my beard.
It is eating your beard.
He is eating my beard.
You're such a weirdo.
That's not hay.
It's not hay.
It's not
You're
hay.
such a weirdo.
Listen, you communist. Cut it out.
Mm.
Yes, thank you.
You got a little silver in your chair. I wonder if all of them are going to turn into chinchillas.
Rabbits. Rabbits are the devil's oven mitts.